Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in to this Justin podcast. My name's Justin, and today I'm going to explain a little bit before we get into podcast topics, but I am kind of transitioning from the personal development podcast / joke around with friends podcast to the Renaissance Man's podcast. And so my plan with this is the personal development didn't totally fit my attention span, so I'm changing to this Renaissance Man's podcast so that in a week or two, I'll have a different hobby that I jump into randomly. I've had one every other week for the past year and a half, 2-3 years of my life. So we're changing to that. And also I don't have a guest. So this is kind of an attempt at making things a little more routine for me, get in the groove and do this a little more often because I do enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking about things and sharing my perspective because I know I enjoy hearing other people's perspective. So maybe somebody else will like it, maybe somebody else won't. Who knows? But I guess we do have a guest. I lied. We've got Odie. He's out here chilling, big chilling. Yeah, you buddy. I got him excited. He is my guest for today, and we're just hanging out. It's a little late at night, but today, like I said, Renaissance Man's podcast, we're kind of swapping to different subjects every couple weeks, and if it's something you'll be interested in, awesome. If not, you know what? Kick you to the curb. Just kidding. But today we're talking about stand-up comedy. So I'll also say some of the subjects I might cover throughout this generation of podcast is stand-up comedy. I'm thinking about jiu-jitsu, different sports, history, just everything that might encompass the interests of somebody who considers himself a hobbyist or a Renaissance man. So again, today we're talking about stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy is something I remember watching when I was pretty young. I watched it whenever I think I saw the Blue Collar Comedy Tour when I was probably younger than 10 with Larry the Cable Guy, Jeff Foxworthy, Ron White, and who's the last one? I don't know. I can't remember all of them. But I remember seeing comedy from a young age. I remember on my iPod, I downloaded some little 3 and 5 minute bits from some comedians. Dane Cook, I remember listening to Louis C.K., Jim Gaffigan, sometimes on Pandora. But it's kind of been a bigger part of my life than I realized. And now I'm finally getting into it where I'm watching comedians a little more. I see them on podcasts. I see specials, of course, on Netflix, Hulu, whatever. And it's just interesting to see. I actually ended up getting up on stage for my bachelor party and telling a joke, which was exhilarating for one, but I had practiced it 5 or 10 times. 10 or 20 times. I was super nervous even thinking of getting up on stage and talking in front of an audience. And I finally got up there for the bachelor party. I remember I wanted to practice it 2 or 3 times in the weeks coming, like actually get up on stage and practice the bit at an open mic night. Never did. And then finally got there, did it, could hardly remember if I messed up or did anything. I remember my brother took a video that was absolutely awful. It's a video of just him kind of at his hip shaking, and I think he was excited or didn't know how to work his camera or both. But it was exhilarating. I got some laughs and it was really fun. Maybe I might throw a link up there just to the bit that I did for fun. But some of the thing I wanted to talk about is the art of it. It's a really cool form of entertainment where, you know, you get somebody who has these different unique perspectives of the world and they get up and share them with everybody in a fun way that, you know, sometimes offends people, sometimes brings people to an understanding of something they hadn't really thought about before. And I feel that I'm pretty open-minded to the point that I laugh at just about everything because I know most of the time it's not cared for anybody just listening. Odin is wandering around looking at all my lighting and everything. So I don't know if we can do a dog guest podcast, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, stand-up comedy it's a cool art form, watching people get up on stage, figure their things out. So actually going to a comedy club is a different experience than what I thought it was. I guess I thought more that it was going to be in open a stadium seating, kind of a theater where you go in and sit. We went to the comedy club in Kansas City, which was just more of a, it's kind of a bar setting. You go in, they seat you. You have to buy tickets, $5 if you don't go up on stage for open mic night. And you go in there, they seat you, they'll give you let you buy drinks and everything. And then people slowly start to get up on stage. They have 3 minutes to tell a bit, and at the 3 minute mark, they start flashing you with a light to make sure you get off stage. And then eventually they have somebody who's a host that comes up and will take the mic from you. But it's again, I guess I was thinking it'd be more like the clubs and the stadiums that people sell out, the big comedians, right? Not at all what it was for the open mic, and it's been a cool experience the times I've gone, and the times we have gone, you see the same people over and over again, at least at the same club, sometimes working out the same bits, sometimes working on new stuff. And it's cool to see some things start to work out. You're like, that didn't really hit last week. This week it worked. Or, you have some people that never hit, that never quite get, at least in the, 4 or 5 weeks in a row that we went, you get people that just can't quite figure something out. And you're kind of like, okay, you might need to move on past that one. But I'm no comedian at this point. I did one bit, got a couple laughs, and I think I'd have a lot of fun with it, but I just haven't tried putting together anything else. I did watch some other stand-up specials in preparation for this. I watched a couple of Bert Kreischer. I'm a pretty big fan of Two Bears, One Cave. Bert and Tom. Watched Taylor Lawrence, I think is her name. She's pretty funny, and then watched one of Tom Segura's. And one thing I noticed about Bert, so I watched 2 of his. I watched Hey Big Boy, and then I think his most recent one. But the Hey Big Boy, it was kind of interesting to see. I think it was in 2017, maybe 2018 that he did it. And it was cool to see the progression from just him in a special, because I watched that one and I was like, I can tell that's not, I guess, authentic. I could tell that he was telling a story and he had done it, 100, 150 times or whatever. And I think the only reason I could tell that is because I'd watched his podcast so much. I can hear authentic Bert, So that was kind of interesting. And then I heard the second one, and the one that's more recent seems much more authentic Bert. He's giggling, cackling, all excited and red in the face, and I guess it seems more like the authentic Bert that I've seen on that podcast. And Tom's, I can't remember how recently it had come out, but it seemed a little more his personality right from the get-go, and that was pretty that was a good one to watch too. Taylor Lawrence, I don't know that I'd ever seen anything as special by her before, so she was pretty funny too. But some of the things I picked out from these different specials are just the things that I think would make a good comedian, and I've of course heard them talk about it. But some of the things I wrote down are just, being a good storyteller. So sometimes I don't always feel that I'm the best storyteller. I can tell when you can see people's their body language and just what their eyes are interested in. If you're telling a story and somebody's not interested, you can tell pretty quick if you're observant, right? So that's something I feel like you have to be captivating, whether it's that you exaggerate and it's in a good enough way where you're acting and you can get somebody to believe in what you're telling, what story you're telling, whatever it is. I think being a good storyteller is a huge part of being a good comedian. And then something else I wrote down was transitioning between jokes. That seems like that would be a difficult thing. I think about the 3-minute stand-up bit that I did, and just I think it's not necessarily hard to find topics to transition to, but to make that next topic funny or relatable to a crowd or whatever it is, just moving on to that next topic is, it's got to be good, right? Or else you're going to lose your whole audience. You're going to lose everybody's attention. And I think, and moving on to that, transition to another joke, i- keeping an audience together and with you and on the same page, I think is a chore. It's if you start to bobble over your words and start to get too confused about what you're going to say or too many thoughts inside your head, you start to lose it and then you lose people. But from what I've heard, that's a process that you come to learn and try and get people back. You try and lure them back into the things you're saying, lure them back into some captivating information, and it's yeah, I think that's something else that made a good comedian out of that made some good comics out of Tom, Bert, and Taylor, and all the other ones that exist, right? Let's see how Odin's doing real quick. Oh, he's left from his bed. What else? So, here's something else I had written down. Specials are pretty cool, but after going to a club, specials, I think that's what made me feel that I could also see some of the, I'll say, inauthenticity from like Bert, but I don't think that's necessarily what it was. It was just that I could see his personality was a little more scripted in that special. But yeah, when you go to a club, it's more fun being there in the moment because you get a little bit of crowd work. If you've never been to one, you get some guys will get up there and do some crowd work and talk to you and try and tell all these different work something out, right? They're trying to work out whatever bit they're trying to do, but it's interesting. It's a little exhilarating. I got called out one time. He's like, what did he say to me? He goes, "What do you do for a living?" And I said, "I'm an engineer." And he's like, fuck, and started moving on to somebody else. And I was like, I didn't even know what to expect. I didn't know where he was going with it. I thought he was about to absolutely trash me or something. And then he just moved on. And I was like, all right, well, that wasn't quite as fun. But the night I went up on stage, my brother got called out by somebody else, and they were calling him out for having long hair, boots kicked up on the table, and saying some silly stuff because he was heckling. He wasn't heckling awfully, but he was hooting and hollering a little bit to some of the things the other comedians were saying. It was kind of funny. But the last thing that I think I noticed in those specials was the emotional pull. So, of course, you get some misdirection in good comedy, but the emotional pull for me, I think, was in Bert's special. He was talking about his daughters, and I can't remember what story he was telling, but he got emotional in it and draws everybody in. Again, captivates, lures them in, so to say. And doing that, he taps into something else. I don't even know what to call it other than emotion, but taps into something else that gets people's attention, and then he strikes with something silly or a one-line zinger, a punchline, another whatever it is, another transition, and it's cool to see when you're really thinking about it in a different light instead of sitting there just laughing at the stories and laughing at the noises or whatever it is that your favorite comedian does to be funny, but actually kind of admiring what the art is, because if you go and get up on stage, it's much different. If you go give a PowerPoint presentation, if you go give a motivational speech, halftime speech, if you go up on stage and try and be a comedian, it's much different than what you might imagine. That was my take anyway. I'd given some presentations through college. I've given some speeches to small groups, but that was just, you have all these lights on you flashing in your face, and you can't hardly see anybody. It's a really cool experience. But I would definitely advise anybody that has any interest in stand-up comedy to go watch somebody in a club, go to an open mic night, because that was really fun to do the live entertainment version of it. And then also, if you want to do a good job, if you do want to do comedy and you want to do a good job, I'd definitely say just practice your bit to yourself. Like, I was driving to and from work, and I was trying to figure out what wording I was going to use, and the joke kind of moved on to another step of it, and it slowly developed for me where I had something that I got some chuckles, and I was happy with that. I didn't really care to, at the time, development anymore. Maybe in 6 months I'll go back and try another bit, but at this point, that's not, I guess, my immediate interest. Like I said, we're trying to do the Renaissance Man's podcast, and next week, 2 weeks from now, I'm not sure what we'll be talking about, but I'll keep you posted. So thanks for tuning in. This has been This Just In podcast. Always appreciates likes, subscribes, comments. If you have a topic or anything you'd like to hear about, or you'd like somebody to do a deep dive, I'll do a week or two's worth of a deep dive, figure out something about it that, of course, if it interests me. If it doesn't interest me, then, no thanks. But I'll take considerations, and anything you recommend, we'll look into and check it out. So thank you for tuning in. I know it's a little different. Odie, say bye. You're a little far away, Odie. Odie. Good boy. Come here. Place. Sit. Good boy. Close enough. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.